evening. We're calling, is this working? Good evening. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Good evening. Call the July 9th, 2024 regular Town Council Committee of the Whole to order. It is 6:30 p.m. and all are present. Is Councilor Parker online?
Not yet.
Not yet. She said she would be online this evening. So we were all present except for Councilor Parker at this time. On to calendar and communications. Councilor Merritt, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. I just, let's see, what do I have? Communication regarding SB Butler, communication regarding the Board of Ed budget, communication regarding the meeting that we had the last time with the newspaper article about the FOI thing. Questions about like how much is that going to cost? I said I deferred to the town office to ask those questions. Let's see. Communication regarding athletic fields, properties in our town. Let's see. And I think that's. I did not march in the 4th of July parade this year because I had some other commitments, but I did attend, and it seemed like a nice event. That's all I have.
Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have anything to pass other than it was a very fun parade.
Thank you. Councilor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to say thank you to Parks and Rec for a fantastic parade. It was fun to march in. Great to see so many Groton residents out and about. I want to say thank you to my fellow councilors who all attended. I think almost everybody here was in attendance at the parade. So that was great. I do want to, I received all the same communications that everyone else did. I received some communications regarding concern with lack of decorum amongst some people. And additionally, I got an email that I think everybody received regarding unreasonable noise. And I'm hoping that the town manager can address that. I know you said that you were going to speak to that.
Mayor, can I just, real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, there have been a couple, I don't know all the details. I know they've been out there more than once.
Hold on. Not noise with the council.
No. This was an email. Noise.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank
there was
you.
a noise complaint at Honda Cardinal.
Yes.
That one, yes. They've been out there several times, apparently more than once, and not found any issue with the noise. I do know, however, the chief assigned a lieutenant to meet with the person who issued the complaint, and I've been told it's fine now, so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo the other councilors' sentiments on the 4th of July parade. I think it was terrific. It was nice to see there were so many people out there. I think this is one of the biggest attendance ones that I have walked in. It was a beautiful day, and thank you to Parks and Rec for doing the fantastic job that they have done every year on these parades, and they did it again this year. So congratulations to them and to everybody who came out and enjoyed the afternoon.
Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. I also attended the 4th of July parade and had a terrific time. It was lots of fun. Also received numerous emails. Some of the correspondence has already been mentioned regarding the Board of Ed financials and other things. I also received several questions and comments on Mystic parking. And I actually took a ride down there to take a look at it, and it seems to be a significant issue from what I'm hearing from numerous people about the lack of parking. So I'm not sure where we stand with that. I know it's come up before, so I'll look to the mayor and the town manager on where this stands, whether it's a council. I thought the state had passed some legislation that they were going to provide some money to start some project or plan to try to mitigate those issues, but I just was hoping for a follow-up as to where that stands going forward. So hopefully next summer it's not in the condition it is this summer. Also received an email from David Aldrich. He reached out to me from the newspaper article regarding the nip bottles that Mayor Franco put forward. I forwarded that to Town Manager Burt and the mayor for next steps. And hopefully, there'll be some great things coming about that. I will attend the meeting tomorrow, the SCAR meeting, and if I hear anything, I'll report that back to the mayor and the town manager. Also attended the Groton Long Point annual meeting on Saturday. The one thing that was noteworthy from that meeting was they did pass a noise ordinance to mitigate some of the late night parties that they're having there as a way to mitigate some of the issues that people may be, with STRs and so forth. So we'll see how that hopefully mitigates some of those issues. And that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Burt?
Representative Baumgartner reached out to me just in the last couple of weeks. That committee's being formed right now. He asked me if I was interested in serving, which I said, of course I am. A year would be pretty low, pretty aggressive. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Yeah.
And which committee is that?
It's there was a state act that created a committee to look at infrastructure, including resiliency, parking, all kinds of things it passed, I think, last year at the state. And so I know they're pulling that together. There hasn't been a meeting yet or anything. I just got asked to be on it. So
Thank you.
I'll keep the council updated.
Thank you. Counselor Gajewski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the 4th of July parade, and I share the same sentiments of my fellow councilors, Councilor Bordelon and Councilor Merritt. Hope you can make it next year. It was a great time. And then thank you to Director Barry and the Parks and Rec staff for putting that on. I received some concerns about garbage, bathroom, and noise in downtown Mystic over the 4th of July weekend. Reached out to the town manager. He helped resolve some of those. And then there was one other, and then same communications regarding SB Butler, Port Ed, and the noise at Cardinal Honda. That's it for me.
Thank you. I also received many of the communications other counselors have as well. This past Friday, I worked with Groton Little League and the Navy at Music in the Park over in the city at Washington Park. Had a great time. It was really nice to see people in our community and chat with them. I watched the Board of Ed meeting, enjoyed the 4th of July parade, walking in it, and it was nice to see so many people lining the streets and enjoying themselves. I was notified today, as we know, there was an article in the day paper regarding the nip bottle buyback program that we are looking into. Today, I was contacted by Tina Dittel at Channel 8 News, and Mr. Hanover and I, on separate occasions here today, gave an interview. So that was on this evening's news, and there's a lot of positive feedback. This weekend, SCARA, as has been noted, had reached out, as well as the ARC has reached out. And it seems to be a lot of interest because from what I'm gathering, this would be the first type of program in the state of Connecticut for buying back nip bottles. So very interesting. So moving on. Oh, Counselor Parker's here. Counselor Parker, do you want to share any communications?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Received the same communications, and again, thank you to Parks and Rec. As my fellow councilors have stated, it was a wonderful parade. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's approval of minutes. Counselor Parker, would you like to take that?
Give me one moment, please. Skip to the right page. I make a motion to approve the June 24th, 2024 minutes. I so move.
I believe it's June 25th.
I mean, June 25th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm looking at 2024, 641, June 25th, 2024 minutes. I so move.
Second,
Thank you.
Gajewski.
Motion by Parker, seconded by Gajewski. Do you have any comments? Counselor Bordelon?
Yeah, on page 5, 5B to be exact, or page 3, however you want to read these, this packet. The last sentence of 5B, it says, as well, the trash compactors. My understanding, I rewatched the meeting and I just renoted this. It should, I personally think it should read, the consensus of the council is to reach and research and implement and pilot program for the buyback program. In addition to like looking, I don't think we were researching like buying, it just the way it reads here with the trash compactors in conjunction, it doesn't read smoothly as to what was depicted at the meeting. So my understanding when I rewatched the meeting is that we were going to research more about the buyback program and continue to, implement trash compactors. But the way that this reads is like we're researching trash compactors as well. We've already done that research. So I just was a little confused. Just wanted some insight on that. That's my first question.
Are you requesting it be changed, and how would you like it worded?
Well, I was looking for a consensus from you all if there was some other way that that was stated, but when I rewatched the meeting, we were gonna do more research on the NIPS and continue to implement trash compactors where we felt that the Public Works Director felt they would be beneficial. So that would be my amendment. We weren't gonna research the trash compactors.
Can you
so.
say how you want your amendment?
Well, I was looking to see if you thought that, I mean, is there any other consensus that that's the way it read, or? I was deferring to the town manager perhaps, through the mayor.
I don't, it's the minutes. I mean, I don't think we had to have a big discussion on it. If you would like to add a few words into here, as well as add more trash compactors, I mean, you can add that.
That's not exactly what I said, so let me just restate what I said. I said, I'm just saying that we weren't gonna research trash compactors. And the way that this is written, it states as if we're researching trash compactors as well as nip bottles.
Right, where it says, research and implement a pilot program for a buyback, as well as add more trash compactors. That's what you can add.
Right, and I just wanna make sure that we're not researching trash compactors, so I just want it to reflect that.
Would you like to add the words, as well as add more trash compactors?
Right, or continue to implement. Where the Public Works, feel.
I can second that.
Motion, amended motion by Counselor Bordelon, seconded by Rusk. Any?
Point, Madam Mayor, a point of
Yes.
information?
Yes.
What is the motion?
The amended motion is to change on page 5, the last sentence in section 5B, where it's right, the last two words say trash compactors, and we're going to remove the word "the" and add more.
Okay, I just want to be clear because I wasn't sure what verbiage we were adding. So,
Yeah.
because in order to have the motion, I needed a clear sentence of what the motion would be. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the amended motion passes 9-0 to 0.
I have another
Then we're going to
amendment.
pass them all together as one.
I have another amendment.
Okay. your
I had to speak
amendment.
up because you were looking down the,
I had asked if there was any more. so-
yes, I
Go
guess I
ahead.
didn't hear you. Also, I just don't think that I think it's important to, say what was represented. But if you watch the meetings, again, these don't jive, but the section, I don't agree, and I don't need a second if you want, I'm just stating it, because I don't agree that we took a recess because of Counselor Bordelon. I think that's completely, in my opinion, out of line. I also think the section where it talks about,
What section are you on?
it's in here, I'm just stating it, I'm not looking for an amendment, but also the
No, but I
sections
need to know
where,
where you're at in here.
it's the whole thing. Sometimes I just feel like the minutes want to be detailed. Tonight, they're awful detailed, which is amazing. The section on the count on the Board of Ed member, Ian Thomas, I think that section as well, if we're going to depict it to its detail, fine, you can call them out of line, because that's your choice. It doesn't mean that it's, just because you don't get a second, that it is or not. But doesn't state in there that he was invited by the Board of Ed per the email. That should be added. He was asked to represent. We chose not to let him be part of the meeting, but that should be added in here. So if we're going to say that, there is email correspondence where Jay asked him to come and represent the Board of Ed. Shall the Board of Ed be recognized, in all fairness? And that's not depicted here in these minutes. Instead, it goes on to say, and it's this council's right, if you want to say he was out of line, that's up to you. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think it should be stated that an email was sent that he was to represent on behalf, shall the council. So I think that should be added.
Where would you like to add that? What section, what page?
Let's see, let me find my spot here. Let me find it. I had it marked, I apologize. Sorry, I flipped the page and I lost my spot, so I have to find it. Page 6 or 8, depending on how you read these minutes. You know, I think before you read that there was an email by Jay, which we all got.
Which section are you looking
Can
at?
I finish?
I'm trying to.
I'm being interrupted, though. Like, please, with all due respect, can I
You are,
finish?
no, you're out of time. I'm asking for the
Then
section
fine,
you are
let's,
on.
we can move on
I'm
then.
asking for what
No, we're
section
fine.
you are on.
No,
So
thank
the
you.
rest of the council.
We can move on,
can be
thank
on
you.
the same page
I yield
as
my
you.
time, thank you.
Thank you.
No respect.
Counselor Borderline, you're out of order.
Thank you. Please note that in the minutes.
You are out of order again. You do not have the floor. You are out of order.
That's fine.
Again. You are out of order. And we are at 6:46 and we'll be taking our first break of the evening. Thank you. It is 6:55 and we are back from a recess. It will be noted in the minutes that the break was due to Counselor Bordelon was out of order. It would not come back into order.
Point of information?
Your point of information?
I think that's highly inappropriate. I feel very targeted, and that's not the reason. We could move on, like other counselors and other councils do when there's a
That's not
disagreement.
a, that's not a question.
Yeah,
That's not a
well,
question.
I
that's a
disagree with
statement.
that. I feel very targeted and
That's not a question. Do you have,
bullied,
what is your
in
question?
fact, by you. My question is, why am I being targeted constantly?
You are not being targeted.
I am.
We are following Robert's Rules of Order, the 12th edition, and it is stated in there that when you do not have the floor, you will be called out of order.
Okay, and you choosing to take these random breaks whenever is excessive.
It is when you are
So-
being called out of order and you will not come back into
No,
order.
that's not
After
true.
given 3 attempts, we go into a recess.
Okay, so it's 3 attempts now? I just want to be clear on the rules.
Well, that's basically what we've
Okay.
been doing.
All right, thank
If you
you.
hadn't noticed.
Okay. Just make sure you also note that I don't agree.
That is not part of how
I
the
know it's
minutes
not.
work.
I just want to make sure that it is noted for the record.
Counselor Borderline, you're now out of order. Moving on. We will now approve the minutes with the amendment that has been proposed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Counselor Parker, I didn't hear how you voted.
I said yes, thank you.
Thank you. That passes 8-1-0. Moving on to new business. 2024-508-3, alteration of a scenic road, 1034 River Road. This is on page 11. Counselor McBride, would you like to take that?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend a resolution approving of the alteration to the River Road right-of-way.
Second. Bordelon?
Moved by McBride, seconded by Bordelon. Do we have anybody here that's going to speak on this?
If you have any questions, yes, both Director Reiner and then we have someone online.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Counselor Bordelon.
So I did get some comments on this, and some folks were concerned that they want to make sure that it's not changing any of the natural landscaping, which I had stated that if the last meeting or the other meeting, it was stated that it would not. So I just didn't know if there's any other things that, we should state on the record tonight to, what exactly these changes would look like.
Mr. Burke, do you have any comments related to that? Good evening, Mr. Reiner.
Good evening, everyone.
I guess, and also just to finish that, folks are concerned because a lot of older homes are being torn down on that road and changing the natural tapestry of that road, and being demolished, and newer homes are going in. I was asked, shouldn't that possibly be something that we're trying to protect, as well as, when they're trying to put these new driveways in and things like that in different areas? So I didn't know that if we had any protection on that road for the housing, to give folks a chance to know that a building is being demolished before it's demolished. So that's another question I was asked to find out about. Is there any form of protection on River Road for the demolish of older homes that's changing the tapestry?
Mr. Reiner, is there anything changing the natural landscape tapestry?
So, to my knowledge, based upon what the applicant has put in front of us, there's nothing that's changing the scenic road right-of-way. They had stated that they're changing the grade a little bit and putting in a temporary apron. This ordinance really covers the right-of-way of the scenic road, and the rest of the property is dealt with via other regulations or ordinances that we have in place in town.
So when it comes to the alteration of a scenic road, our responsibility is to just the road itself?
Looking at the right-of-way.
Thank you.
The other questions that were asked is any drainage, since the topography was going to change, making sure it's not going to flood any surrounding neighbors when you do that. That's very vital and important, when you're changing the grade. And if there should be any change in the water distribution with all the flooding we've had now, what type of protections are for the people around when you're changing the grade like this?
Is the grading and the water in our purview?
So grading of this could be, do note that anytime people are doing grading, we've reviewed things for stormwater management on plans, if they're altering a certain area. I think the gentleman that's on the line could certainly answer any questions specifically on stormwater, but I think I've said to the council before, we have incredibly strict stormwater standards and how we deal with things in town. When there's new construction, things are usually brought more into compliance than where they are in things that are existing.
Thank you.
I guess through the mayor, can the gentleman that he recommended online speak to some of that?
Sure. I'm not sure exactly who's online.
It's Ryan Shepard of CLA Engineers.
Good evening.
There's no significant foreseeable impact to any kind of runoff. The only change within the right-of-way we're making is raising it about maybe a half a foot right at the apron. And there was no drainage channels or anything that is being altered as far as storm runoff should be concerned. The grading change is very minor within the scenic right-of-way.
And my last question through the mayor, some folks have asked, is it going to block any views of pulling out for oncoming and going traffic in that area with the grade changing? For people that are just naturally driving, walking on that road, would it be harder to see traffic? Or is that going to impede or change any of that?
I don't think so. I think that any of the grading change is so minimal that there shouldn't be any impact on any neighboring sightlines. Where the driveway is, I don't see it being an issue for other driveways.
All right, that's the only questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Parker.
Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Burt and Mr. Reiner. Did we not show a picture of what the changes would be, and did we not post it online for everybody to review just in case?
It was presented at the public hearing.
It was
Yeah.
at the public hearing, yes.
Yeah.
Did we post it online just in case?
Well, it's in our packet, right? I think it was in the
It was in the packet.
I'm asking for the public, so the public can review it just in case, so if they want to come back and look at it again. Because I believe we did discuss all the items and the concerns from before about line of sight and the grade and just looking at the road. It's only the driveway, correct?
Correct. And all of this was posted also in the May 28th, 2024 Committee of the Whole packet. There were detailed maps, pictures, and a description, and that was prior to the scheduling of the public hearing.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, seeing no other hands, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. Up next is 2024-650 Department of Defense Grant. This is on page 12 of our packet. Counselor Jones, would you like to take that?
Thank you. Moving item 2024-650 Department of Defense Grant. Motion to recommend a resolution to endorse, staff's participation in the grant application and authorize the town manager to sign all grant agreements and necessary MOUs and intergovernmental agreements with the SCOG for the administration and implementation of the grant. So moved.
Second, Bordelon?
Moved by Jones, seconded by Bordelon. All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so I guess we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? I've already called for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. Up next, 2024-651 FYE 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial
Thank you.
Report. Counselor Rusk, would you like to take, what page is this? Let me see.
33.
Page 33, would you like to take this one?
I would. Item 2024-651, FYE 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Motion to recommend a resolution to accept and file the FYE 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR, the Auditor's Report, and Management Letter. So moved.
Second, Bordelon?
Moved by Rusk, second by Gieske. Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
My name is Vanessa Rosito. I'm an audit principal at CLA CPAs, not engineers, which is very funny. And with me is Steve Gross, who's the audit manager.
Thank you.
So we have an audit PowerPoint presentation just to go through to summarize all of the deliverables. After I'm done with the presentation, we'll move over here, so we're all looking at you, but I just can see the screen better over here.
Sure, that sounds good. Thank you.
My apologies. Madam Mayor, may I interrupt?
Sure.
Thank you. Before we move forward, I'd like to request a formal apology from Board of Ed member Ian Thomas based on his behavior at the June 25th meeting. During this meeting, Mr. Thomas displayed a lack of decorum, interrupting the meeting multiple times and refusing to respect the ruling of the mayor. Mr. Thomas was so disruptive that the work of the town council needed to be paused and a recess needed to be called. Additionally, Mr. Thomas was verbally abusive to a town attorney that night. If Mr. Thomas refuses to apologize, I request that he not be seated for this discussion tonight.
Point of information?
So we have a motion, just a moment, a motion by Rusk, seconded by Jones. Your point of information.
I think this is completely.
Your question?
I'll do a point of order. I think it's completely out of line.
What is,
My point of order is I think it's out of line.
this is how you bring forward a complaint.
Right, but we don't treat all the other ones like that. Other people have come up here and completely been disrespectful and rude and attacked people. And we've
I don't
never,
recall
I
that.
think this is, and forcing someone to apologize when they don't feel that they're wrong and then they can't sit tonight is not
This
even
is in
democratic
Robert's
at
rules.
all.
It is in Robert's rules.
Okay, it's your choice, but it looks,
It is,
it's a bad
it
look.
is very democratic. It is in Robert's rules.
Sure, it's your choice. I said enough, thank you.
Thank you. So as we have this, it is up to the council if we would like to bring this forward as the motion on the floor. So we will vote on it, and if it passes, we will ask Mr. Thomas to apologize to the council, or he will be asked to leave the table and participation. So,
Madam Mayor, I call for a roll call vote.
okay. Do you have a question?
I guess I'm just
Councilman Pratt?
confused. What's the purpose of Mr. Thomas being here this evening?
Well, the audit is, having the audit in the town is typically, I think, we hire the auditors by the town. It is the town council's responsibility to approve and accept the town audit. And historically, the Board of Ed does not attend these meetings. Due to issues related to some of the school items in the audit, I, as a courtesy, invited the Board of Ed members to be here this evening. And I had told the chair that we would limit their discussion to one round with 3 minutes a person. And they would be allowed to go first and just discuss the school portion of the audit. The chair had responded to me saying that was, he thought that was perfectly fair. So this evening, there is Mr. Thomas here, I guess, to, took up the offer of coming, and the rest of the board did not.
There is point of information.
You do not have the floor.
Well, there is somebody else
You
here
do not have the floor.
on camera.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to take it a different approach. The town hires the auditing firm.
Yes,
You're presenting to the town council the Board of Ed, in my view, is a department of the town. So I'm not sure why the Board of Ed would be here at this meeting to begin with, because it's just like, why can't the police department be here? And why can't other departments? So I'm not even getting involved in the motion on the floor, other than, I don't think it's proper to have any departments here because they're hired by the town. We control the purse strings of the town. They should be presented to the town council, and no one else should be involved. So that's my thought. So whether or not this motion goes forward, I'm of the thought that they should be presented to the town council, and that's how it should be dealt with.
And historically, that is the way it has been dealt with. I agree. And as a courtesy, I offered the Board of Ed to come so they could ask about their own audit because there were issues that were arising, and that they could ask them directly to the auditors.
And I understand and I respect your opinion. I guess my thought is, I'll say it again, they're a department of the town. And I think that's at another discussion when they or any other department of the town want to discuss the audit. I don't think they have the authority to be here in this role this evening because they're a department of the town. That's just my thought.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I.
Point of information?
I think that is very well taken by me and understood, and I will take that into consideration going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your point of
I
information.
just wanted to also kindly respect to say another Board of Ed member is online as well.
Yes, thank you, I saw that.
I just
going
was
to
announced that
announce
only one was here.
I was going to announce that,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
I also see there is Board of Ed member Dr. Ackerman online as well. So what we have on the floor right now is a motion by Counselor Rusk, seconded by Counselor Jones. Is there any more discussion? Counselor Bordelon.
Thanks. Again, I just want to state that there's been many, it was not stated in the minutes at all. He was invited to come, he sat at the table, and then it was, nope, we're not going to speak to you tonight. Originally, just like you said tonight, it was stated that he would come represent the council, the Board of Ed. So I just think that this is, if this is going to be the precedent, well, then let's move there, because I've been verbally attacked by many people, and I should ask
Point of order?
that
Your
we
point
not
of order,
allow them
you need
to
to
speak.
stop, you need to stop when there's a point of order.
I'm not out of
Your
line.
point of order?
You,
I'm sorry, Counselor Parker, your point of order, I will call on you first.
thank you. Council Bordeaux, I would ask that you only stick to the topic at hand. You're discussing Mr. Thomas's, the Board of Ed's request to be there, not the verbal, quote-unquote, verbal attack on you. If we can speak to the topic on hand. And it's in Robert's rules, in our rules. Thank you.
Thank you, well taken.
All right, so I ask then that this, if this is precedent, that it continues throughout. It hasn't been something that's been done before. And I think, you know, for me, asking someone to force an apology when, you know, that's one side of a view, as it's been stated before, you know, to overturn a ruling, you have to get a second. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean that that ruling is truly in line. And that's to be, so with no disrespect, that's the case. If you up here ask for something and you don't get a second, it doesn't mean that you're not.
That is not the topic on the floor.
I'm just speaking in reference
It
to
is
what
not
was
the
considered
topic
out
on
of
the
line.
floor.
It is the topic.
Please keep germane to the motion on the
It
floor,
is to the
please.
topic. It's talking about the night and the reason for the motion that's being presented. It's the backstory to the motion. So I feel like it's one-sided, unfair, in my opinion, and very targeted. And if this is going to be the new precedent, well, let's roll the carpet out, because there's been many others that really were, in my opinion, out of line, and we've done nothing into this nature before. So I ask for that same respect when, in fact, it happens. And, you know, I'll leave it at that. I just think that this is completely out of line. I will not be supporting it. And it, you know, the communication was that he was invited to speak. And it was a choice, not of all the council, to not allow him to speak. So, and forcing someone to apologize in order to speak tonight, I think that's just, in my opinion, just crosses a lot of lines. Like omitting something just to speak tonight, I just don't think it's fair. Anyway, thank you.
It is, I would like to note that it is definitely in Robert's rules that for, like, an offense can be asked for an apology. It is actually noted in numerous areas in Robert's Rules, the 12th edition.
I will be
I
submitting
would
my
also
offenses
like
then.
to note, you do not have the floor. You are out of order again. I will say that evening, due to the situation at hand, I was also advised that we could have asked Mr. Thomas to leave the meeting altogether as a disruption to our meeting. And taking a break was stopped the business of this council. It was an interference with the business of the council. So, is there any more comments or questions? Counselor Bordelon, are you texting?
Nope, I'm looking at my phone.
There is supposed to be no electronics in texting and
We
communications.
pull up our phones all the time for calculators, so I'm looking at my town email. I'm in germane to my ability. Thank you.
All right, well, we would take a vote on this motion that's on the floor. And it has been requested that it be roll call. If you would, are in favor of Counselor Rusk's motion, you would say aye. Counselor Merritt? Aye. Counselor Bordelon?
No,
Counselor Pacino?
Aye.
Counselor Rusk?
Aye.
Counselor Jones?
Aye.
Counselor McBride?
Abstain for lack of relevancy.
Counselor Gajewski?
aye.
I am also an aye.
Oh,
And Counselor Parker?
Council, aye.
One, two, three, four. That passes 7 to 1 to 1. Mr. Thomas, would you like to make an apology to the council for your behavior at the previous meeting?
Yes, however, like, before I get to the apology, I just wanted to
No.
share a quick point. The Board
The
of Ed
motion on the
is-
floor is for you to apologize.
The Board of Ed
Or you will
is,
have to
is-
leave the meeting.
The Board of Ed derives its authority from the state.
Mr.
The Board of Ed
Thomas,
is
you are out
not
of
a
order.
department of.
Mr. Thomas,
The Board of Ed is
you are
not
out
a
of
department of the
order.
town.
Mr. Thomas,
I'm sorry you feel that way.
you are out of order.
I make a
So-
motion that Mr. Thomas be removed from the meeting, please.
Mr. Thomas, would you please leave the meeting?
I was here on the understanding that it was going to be a joint meeting.
Will you-
And I was
the-
here
The
last
question was
week.
brought forward for you to apologize. Will you apologize?
I don't,
You don't?
I don't.
Thank you. The motion that was for you to now leave our meeting. You are a guest here. You are not part of this council.
We
and-
requested a joint meeting.
So we are now taking a recess. It is 7:18
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it is 7:24. We are back from a recess. Needed a note in the minutes that the break was due to disruption of business by Board of Ed member Ian Thomas. Okay, we're back to the presentation, I believe.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we have done a PowerPoint presentation to summarize all the deliverables. Obviously, if there's questions on any specific page or whatever, I can entertain them after, but I'll just go through this first. And we're going to sit here so we can see that, but then we'll move over here after so we can see.
Sounds good, thank you.
And hopefully I can make this work. Okay, great. This is our disclaimer. I won't go through that. Okay, so as far as the agenda tonight, whoops, sorry. I'm going to go through the terms of the engagement, go over an executive summary of the results. I'll go over some very high-level financial highlights, go through the federal single audit, the state single audit, the management letter, the governance communication, and then lastly end with upcoming GASB standards. So as far as the terms of the engagement, CLA was hired to express opinions on whether the basic financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We express an in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards or the federal single audit and the schedule of expenditures of state financial assistance, which is the state single audit. We express an opinion on the compliance related to the major federal and state programs that we test in our audits. Provide a report on internal control over financial reporting with respect to the financial statements, and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. And then lastly, provide a report on internal control over compliance related to the major federal and state programs that we test. So as far as a summary, we have issued a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion on the June 30th, 2023 financial statements of the town of Groton. It's the best opinion available. And we did not have any findings on internal control and compliance. For the federal single audit, we also issued a clean opinion on the major federal programs that were tested and no compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control over compliance. Same thing for the state single audit, clean opinion on the major state programs that were tested and no compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. So as far as the financial highlights, what I have presented on this slide is the government-wide presentation. So it's basically all of the funds aggregated together of the town and then brought on the full accrual basis. So all of the capital assets are added, all of the town's long-term liabilities are added. And just comparing last year, or 2022 to 2023, there really was no major change in any of the balances. Some of your long-term liabilities decreased just because of the annual payments on debt. So the net position didn't really change that much. $234 million in 2022, $232 million in 2023. On the next slide, I have included the major funds of the town, and this is on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So the major funds of the town are the general fund, the ARPA fund, and then the capital improvements fund, and then the smaller, if you will, funds are aggregated together into the non-major governmental funds column. So just sort of looking towards the bottom of the slide for the change in fund balance, the general fund had a small decrease in fund balance from June 30th, 2022 to 23, so just $365,000 decrease. The ARPA fund had a small increase in fund balance of $3,000, 3,112, And the capital improvements fund had a decrease in fund balance of about 98,000. What's that?
It's a line up, so it's 2,000.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. So going back to the ARPA fund, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. The ARPA fund had an increase in fund balance of 62,000. So it was 3,000 last year, it's 65,000 this year. And then the capital improvements fund had a small decrease from $97,000 from 1.439 to 1,341. And then the non-major governmental funds fund balance increased about $400,000 from 13.4 to 13.8. So overall, all of the governmental funds of the town of Groton increased about $1.5 million. Going to the general fund budget. The general fund had revenues of about $3.5 million over budget for June 30th, 2023, and then the expenditures were $1.39 million under budget. Some other things that I thought you might be interested in, the town's net pension liability was $39.5 million. It increased about $2.2 million from 22 to 23. And then the net OPEB liability was $32.2 million. That decreased $2.8 million from the prior year. So one kind of made up for the other one. On to the federal single audit. The town spent about $15.5 million in federal dollars. In 2023, the major programs that were tested were ARPA, Impact Aid, and Education Stabilization Fund. As I stated before, there was a clean opinion over the compliance and no internal control findings on the major programs. The state single audit, the town spent $3.3 million. The major programs that were tested were the tiered pilot program and the municipal grants and aid program. Again, clean opinion on compliance and no internal control findings. Even though there were no findings in the single audits, we did issue a management letter. So there were 5 items in the management letter. Let me just try to pull it up. Just in case there's questions. So the first item is the Board of Education vendor master file. And I believe this management comment we have had for a couple of years. So just to back up, there's 3 levels of findings. There's a material weakness, significant deficiency, and then there's comments for best practices or controls that need to be improved. So that's where we are in the management letter. That's the level of finding, if you will. So the vendor master file, we are recommending that the Board of Education implement procedures to strengthen the controls around its vendor master file, including limiting the access to this file and segregating the duties of performance and review. So we are noting that there is no review of the vendor master file and access to the file is not limited. So it could, and there could be a ghost vendor set up. So best practice is to review that file periodically. The next comment has to do with the financial close process. So the audit was delayed this year due to turnover within the finance department of the Board of Education and various and employee absences. So we are recommending that formal year-end procedures be developed to include but not be limited to specific due dates to meet state regulatory deadlines and assignments that are adequately delegated and staffed and include a subsequent reviewer. If the primary person responsible for the task is unavailable, the secondary person who has been cross-trained should complete the task in order for items to be completed within state deadlines. The third comment has to do with general ledger maintenance at the Board of Education. So there's kind of three items with this, this comment. It was noted that there was a significant amount of Board of Education expenditures that were recorded to the incorrect period. Although the identification of these expenditures was ultimately identified by the town's control environment, the Board of Education's control environment should have identified and corrected these errors. So that was the first part. There was a delay in recording activity in various funds, Board of Ed special revenue funds, grants funds, DOD fund, and the school lunch fund. And then the third item is that grant revenues and receivables should be recorded when earned and available in the school lunch fund. So we're recommending the policies and procedures of current controls be reviewed and procedures over general ledger maintenance be updated. The fourth item has to do with construction in progress at the town. We noted that there was construction in progress that was expensed, which related to projects from a prior year. So we're recommending that these projects should be reviewed on an annual basis for capitalization purposes and expensed in the year which the expense incurred. And then the fourth column is fraud risk assessment. We have this comment in a lot of our clients' management letters. It's just a best practice for the town to have a fraud risk assessment, which includes, you know, someone to look at the cyber policy. Okay, moving on. So our auditor's communication, which is required communication between our firm and those charged with governance, which is this board. So we are required to communicate certain things. We did adopt a new accounting policy, GASB 96, which is subscription-based information technology arrangements. There are various estimates in your financial statements. We are required to perform additional procedures over these estimates to ensure that there's no management bias, that management isn't trying to overstate or understate them to manage revenues and expenses. So those estimates are as follows. The useful lives of capital assets, which is used to calculate accumulated depreciation. The net pension liability and net OPEB liability, the town utilizes an actuary to calculate these amounts based upon various assumptions that management is under the control of, theoretically. Allowance for doubtful accounts, which is based on historical evaluation. Various claims, medical, heart and hypertension, workers' compensation, pollution remediation. So we looked at these significant estimates and found that there was no management bias. We did not have any disagreements with management. Management did not consult with other accountants for a second opinion. The completion of the audit was delayed, as I stated before. So we were late in submitting it to the state of Connecticut. We did not have any material corrected misstatements. There was one uncorrected misstatement, and all that means is that management assessed the effect of implementing GASB 87 for leases and found it to be immaterial. So the cost benefit of recording it on the financial statements was really not there. It was not material enough to record. So that's really what that means. And we are independent of the town. As far as the new GASB standards, so for implementation year 2024, we don't have to worry about 2023 because we already did that. There's just some cleanup with Statement 99, which is an omnibus standard. Statement 100 has to do with accounting changes or error corrections. If there is an error correction or an accounting change, it's a more prescriptive way of presenting it. If there is a fund that goes from a major fund to a non-major fund, or a non-major fund to a major fund, we now have to disclose that, where before we didn't. And in 2025, there's a new standard on compensated absences. Statement 102 is on certain risk disclosures. The GASB is quantifying more risks that need to be disclosed in the financial statements. And then lastly, hot off the presses a couple weeks ago, is the much-anticipated financial reporting model improvements, which is scaled down tremendously from where it was years ago. So it's really not going to be that much of a change for your financial statements. And that is it. So I will entertain any questions that you have, or we will entertain.
Okay. So before we begin our questions, there was an email sent at 3:46 this evening from the chair of the Board of Ed, and it says, "Dear Mayor Franco, thank you for your invitation to hear a presentation by the auditors this evening. Some board members were disappointed that it was not a joint meeting. Given the importance that the board attaches to a complete understanding of areas where we can improve policies and procedures, we have invited the auditors to a meeting dedicated to discussing their recommendations, to give the board a complete understanding of the issues. For that reason, some members may attend this evening to ask clarifying questions, but the full board and staff look forward to a dedicated future meeting. I would like to address a few points from our meeting last night. It was mentioned that the audit firm is new to Groton. While some staff may be new, the audit firm joined forces with another a few years ago, so it is my understanding that the principles are the same. Also, it was mentioned that work with the auditors began in the fall, according to the timeline created by the staff. However, the town manager pointed out that the auditors began work last summer. And actually, I'm going to correct that and say it was this spring. I regret any misstatements, and we pledge to work with the auditors and the town to ensure a timely process going forward. Lastly, it has been suggested that a statement was made that the town was withholding DOD supplemental payments. I am not aware of that ever happening, and I regret any implication to the contrary. I have always known interactions with the town manager and his staff to be cordial and professional, and I would not want any misunderstandings to damage that relationship. I would request that this email be read into the record. Thank you, Jay Whiteloff, Chair of the Board of Education." So,
Finance person. On the financial highlights of your presentation.
do you have a page for that?
It's page 56, that page. But on yours, it's the financial highlights. page.
It's-
The current assets and liabilities page. Government activities, assets and liabilities.
Are you looking at the financial statement?
No, the presentation.
Oh, okay.
The presentation.
I'm sorry,
Okay, yep.
which,
Page 56.
Of the presentation.
Page 7 of the presentation, page 56 of our council packet.
oh my gosh, I am completely lost
Right there, right?
in this
in that section,
presentation.
yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Sorry
okay.
to disrupt.
So through the mayor, my question is, you said there was nothing that stood out because of the difference between the 23 and 22.
22 and 20, yep.
23,
Right, yep.
22 and 23.
Yep.
So just to educate me, so that's just a $2 million difference between those two. What would have been a number that would have stood out? What kind of range would that have been?
I mean, if there was a significant change in cash or capital assets, if you purchased a large capital asset, if you issued a lot of debt or, something like that. I
So
would have,
between 2021 and 2022, there was the additions of those schools, so
Okay.
that increased
So
the
there
capital
was a
assets a
jump.
lot.
Okay.
So that's something we would point out.
So that's like a flag. You see a big jump like that. will
not a
make the-
flag, but just
a-
something that,
you note.
I think from 22 to 23, things were pretty status quo, really,
Yeah.
which is probably what you want.
Yeah, I just,
Right.
okay, great.
Yep.
Now I have too many pieces of paper. if you go to your audit, page 41,
Yep.
and this is the detail, note 3, detailed notes of all funds continued, cash equivalents and investments.
Yep.
It says here, based on the criteria described in gas statement number 40, deposits and investments, risk disclosures,
Yep.
66 million of the town's bank balance of 69 million was exposed to custodial risk as follows.
Yep.
Can you just sort of describe what that means?
So that basically means that there's only, when you have a deposit in a bank, only $250,000 of it is insured by FDIC insurance. And it could be $500,000 depending if you have an interest-bearing and a non-interest-bearing account. So we're required to look at, accumulate all the cash balances and see how much is actually insured. And I would state that a lot of towns have that difference, if you will, between the two amounts. I had one client back in the day that used to purchase additional insurance from their bank. I don't know how much it cost them, but I don't think it's a popular thing to do. So I would say most of the disclosure looks like this.
So it's not generally your recommendation to go out and purchase
I
this
wouldn't
extra
recommend
insurance?
that. No,
Okay.
it's not my
All right. You just
recommendation. I
make
mean, it's
sh-
something if you want to talk to your bank about, there's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't.
You generally make sure the banks are good banks and everything is fine.
Yeah, and state statutes make sure that you're investing your money in the banks that are
Okay.
of that level.
So is this something you just note it's just something you note because the level is 250,000? and
We're
it's-
required to disclose it.
Just requires it,
Yeah,
okay.
yep.
I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Counselor McBride.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Just a couple of questions. There's been a lot of discussion about the delays, and a lot of taxpayers are asking us questions about the delays for whatever reason they were. My question is, these delays usually have an impact of cost. Do you have an estimate of what the number, if any, of the additional delays cost the town from the original engagement letter to the final price?
So I'll say the delays were due to the Board of Education having difficulties in their finance department getting information to us because of absences. So we did incur additional expenses because we had to look at things a little bit closer. There was out-of-scope time, there was status meetings. I don't have the number quantified. I don't know if Dee does.
I think it was about $6,000 additional billings, but I can get that down.
Okay, no, that's fine, thank you. And I know there's many reasons why, I just was wondering what the additional cost was, so, thank you, Dee. I just wanted to point out, some of these comments are for the residents because they're not going to review this in detail, so I just want to make some comments. You touched upon the fund balance going down 360. I think it's important everybody sees that because we get a lot of questions as counselors. The fund balance is growing too much. We're hitting our taxpayers with too much money, so I think it's important that I'm glad that you made that point that the fund balance didn't increase a significant amount. It actually went down by $300,000. Question on the pension liability. It went up, I forget, maybe 2 million or so. And I thought it looked like it was a change in the assumptions of 1.9 million, and I'm wondering if you know what the change in assumption was for that 2 million, because that looked like the bulk of why it went up. But the reason I'm asking is because we had increased some retiree payments, and people were questioning how much that liability was going to increase for the town. So I would think it's important the residents know that $2.2 million increase is not a result of the raises, it's a result of a change in the assumption. And I'm just wondering what that change was. And if you don't have it now, it's fine. You can get back to us, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
The
Burke?
retirement board had changed the assumption rate, or the rate of return for the interest. I think they went down from 7.25 to 7 to more, is it, it was a 7 to 6?
It did say 7.
7.5, okay. Because we're trying to get a more realistic number, and in a couple more years, I anticipate we'll take another step downward.
Okay,
Depending
great.
on what happens.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Again, just a couple of other points. Revenues went up, three main areas I saw were property taxes were up by 330,000, permit fees were up over almost 400,000, pilot revenue was up 700,000. So I just want the residents to know that's why the revenues went up. And I also think it's important residents to see that in this detail, legal was actually under budget by 115,000 because we get a lot of comments of our legal costs being too high, and I want the residents to know it was under budget by 115,000, and Public Works was under budget by over 300,000. Question on compensated balances, more for a future looking, is my understanding, and I don't know this perfectly, but is that for like sick time now we're gonna have to report on the books, and do we know, is it 100% of sick time or is it gradually increasing? Because that's gonna impact our budget for '25. And I don't know if we did, I'm guessing we didn't budget for that.
So the compensated absences liability is sick and vacation, I believe.
If you don't, but I'm sure you accrue for vacation, but not for sick, correct?
You do the sick as well, but only, I believe, the individuals are eligible to retire.
Okay, so that's just a note that we'll need to look at that this year.
And it's
For
not
an-
100% based on if there's, in union contracts, it might be a 3-to-1 calculation, for every.
Okay, so it's got a gradual, so just so we're, there'll be an expense for that. I'm guessing.
And just to point out, we don't really know when someone's gonna leave that way though, but it's already built in for anything that's regular. It's not gonna change the budget any.
Oh, so you're already accruing for sick time, somewhat, sounds like.
If somebody's on a schedule and one of the older ones that get anything, they would be, but in terms of somebody retired, we'd have no idea. And so we handle that. Worst comes to worst, be a fourth quarter transfer. But
Okay. So I guess back to that question of the sick time, is it,
Let me just interject.
Yep.
If the finance director is going to speak, you need a microphone.
Yeah, it's got that.
I guess, if you can just maybe send us the information on that GASB pronouncement for the compensated balances, so we know what that liability will be. I don't want to spend too much time on it now. And there were many pages of, I don't want to misstate, but internal control weaknesses, maybe not serious, but there were numerous pages of uncorrected misstatements. Can you elaborate on, the detail was there, but it was very small to read, just high level, what we as a town need to do to address those materials?
So I think the only uncorrected misstatement was the fact that you did not record GASB 87 leases. I think there was also an attachment to the governance letter, which was all of the journal entries. So those were just in the normal course of the audit, so they weren't uncorrected. Those are the ones that were made.
So in your opinion, there was nothing abnormal with those pages
That's
of
right.
incorrected misstatements?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now. Thank you.
Counselor Bordelon.
Thank you. Under the section that says management letter under Board of Ed, and I apologize, I tried to dig up my copy from the previous year.
Yep.
What corrections for Board of Ed were under the audit for 2023? Were these same findings?
I think the only one that was repeated was the vendor
master file.
master file, right. That was it, I believe that was in 22. I don't remember if it was in 21, it might have been.
That's right, because we're doing, this one's an audit of
23.
20, I'm sorry?
23.
Yeah, 23, right.
Right.
That's all right, misspoke. I meant 22 and 21. What were the outliers for that for Board of Ed?
I think the vendor master file was repeated. I don't remember what the management letter said in 22 or 21.
Okay, I guess for me, if it's possible, and I don't know if I have a consensus or I have to get a consensus, but I think it's important if there's outliers, that in a report at the end, some reports I looked at it in different, they re-say this one's a continuation of the previous year. I don't know if that's possible, so that way you can see it. Since our council changes over so frequently every 2 years, for high-level clarity and understanding, it would read a little easier to know what outliers were here on the previous years, if there are.
Yep.
So that's the only one we're there. Okay. And I guess that's, because, the board currently has 4 completely new members and 5 old, so why that wasn't addressed would be a question. I will put these other 2 that were identified, were those due strictly to a change in command in the finance office, would you say, or meaning an employee leaving?
I think it was between the employee leaving and other employees employee in the finance office being on leave for a reason. Yeah.
Okay. Right, so those 2. So this one is the returning outlier, and the other 2 are new to a change in finance. So what else could be done in this case? I mean, I know at my job, I mean, if a doctor's out that does surgery, you can't replace that kind of skill, right? So what other towns do to protect without having 2 finance managers? Because, I see these as outliers, but, it takes a while to onboard someone new in that high-level position. So what can a town do to protect themselves?
So the town should, or the Board of Education should make sure there's adequate staffing in the finance office and that people are cross-trained. And if there's knowledge that someone is going to be out for an extended period of time, things should be done to hire, part-time people or another person or something like that.
Or a temp, or?
Yep.
Okay, because I know during that time, the 2 people that left, one was right under the finance director, and then that person followed the finance director, so that was 2 hits, plus someone out sick.
Yeah.
So, but the processes that were here were no new process that changed from the year following,
No.
other than the change. Okay, those are my immediate question. And the vendor master file, when you did the audit, what were the recommendations that you made? I mean, these just, say vendor master file. What are the recommendations under that?
So we have that in there, and it hasn't changed from previous years.
Okay.
We're just saying implement procedures to strengthen the controls around the vendor master file, including limiting the access to this file and segregating the duties.
So that was the same recommendation from the previous year? Okay. And then my other question is, you can cross-train to a certain point, but then if you have multiple fallouts of people, then you kind of are without, right? Is there anything from the town side that we can do in the future to use some of our finance department internally to help in the meantime, or what can you do?
I don't know that I can answer that
Yeah.
question. That's
Yeah.
more of a management question.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's all one budget, I mean, in the big picture. But they can help to find temporary hires that can control it in the meantime until a permanent hire.
I don't know.
All right, thank you for your question.
Okay.
Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through the mayor, I hope it's a quick question.
Okay.
Actually, I got 2.
Okay.
Bouncing off something Councilor Bordelon mentioned. The time in which, each year, in which this audit is done, is it
Yeah.
the same time frame?
Yes, we typically come out in July, June to do prelim, and then we start final field work in like late September. Yes.
October.
So they know you're coming?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
that's, I understand now. And my other question is, you mentioned that due to a delay, you were late with the state?
Yep.
Did that incur any costs from the town for being late? Was there a fee?
I mean, just for our out-of-scope time, as Dee mentioned, it was about $6,000, but there was no fine or whatever with the state, if that's where you're getting at.
All
Yep.
right, thank you very much.
Counselor McBride.
Thank you. Through the mayor, just a question of your professional opinion. We get lots of questions on our fund balance.
Yeah.
And, what percentage it is. So I just want to make sure this council, I can't speak for the council, I guess. It's at 21.3% now. And based upon your opinion, is that based upon the audits that you do, is that a reasonable number? Because I'm under the assumption it is, based upon what we're hearing, and I just want to hear from your opinion. If
You're not
that's
going to
all right.
like my answer. I don't have an answer.
That-
It's
that's
not
fine.
it's not my job to opine on that. It's my job to opine that it's correct. So
Fair.
I would rather have you ask that question to your financial advisor.
Okay, that's fair.
Because
Okay.
every town is different. It's hard to compare one to the other. So your financial advisor knows your town and your financial position and, you know, your economic development and all that. So I would ask you to ask them.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. This is just my own knowledge, and I tried to find it, I couldn't find it, but I had some notes. For my own understanding, there's the general fund balance, but then we have other fund balances, like escrow funds of 585, and I'm just not sure what that is. So I'm really asking, I know it's a question for D, or, I'm not sure where, somewhere in here.
Was it another fund?
Yeah, another fund. I'm just trying to understand, there's like 4 or 5 funds, and I didn't know what they were, so I'm trying to get an understanding of what those were.
Do you have a page for that?
I don't, I tried to look 3 times, I couldn't find it.
We don't have a custodial fund, do we?
They had the general fund all the way to the left, and it had all the funds underneath it.
You said you did not have a page?
I
for
do
that?
not have a page. I usually
Okay.
mark these things. I don't know why. It's not marked.
I mean, we
I
have,
apologize. It's
we
page-
have a lot of
Page 46.
funds.
138.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of the
46 or
smaller
138.
Oh,
special
46
revenue
is the
funds. Is
I'm
that what, are you referring to one of the special revenue fund?
Yeah, it's page 138 at the bottom.
138.
I see like escrow funds, 585,000, non-major government funds. Just so I know what that is. I'm just not familiar with what that is. On page 138.
And 46 of the thing.
Yeah, page 46 of the audit.
146. 146?
Page 138,
Oh, 46, okay.
46 of the audit.
All right.
Kind of in the middle of the screen on the right. And some of this we go through in the budget. I don't recall seeing the escrow funds.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have it now, it's fine. If you
So in the
can
back.
just get back to me.
So you're looking in the notes to the financial statements at the fund balance note. So this is kind of summarizing all the buckets that your fund balance is in. So there's a non-major fund where you have 585,000 committed to escrow funds. So we have to find that.
Yes,
out.
and actually, if you look on page 109 of the audit report, uh, 109 and 110 actually give you a description of every special revenue fund that's combined into that non-major category. And,
Pages 201 and 202 of the packet.
oh,
Just for the,
Just when we thought we knew.
201, 202.
What page? 201, Joe said?
Yes, 201 and 202.
Okay, so there's descriptions there. I can find that.
yep,
up
and at the
below.
very bottom, it does list the escrow funds and
Perfect, I'll-
describes what kind of accounts are held
I'll
in
read
there.
it myself. Thank you for that.
oh, yeah,
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor, may I add one piece of information?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to note that for the 6,000-ish overage on cost, the Board of Ed did pay for that. I also want to note, it was mentioned last night that they pay for something like 65, 70% of the audit. It's more like 39.1% that they, is that what it, yeah, 39.1,
So they pay 39.1.
right?
Are you all set, Mr.? I mean, Mr. Counselor
I'm almost-
McBride?
almost there, thanks.
Mr.?
I'm good, thank you.
Counselor Gieske?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the auditors and the finance director for coming here this evening. My first question is, I know we were delayed on this year's audit. Will that have any effect on the ability, my concern is there going to be a trend of delay now that we were delayed on this year and we're kind of running back? Or are we still estimated to have next year's audit in the January, February window, or March, get it back in March? Because my concern was we didn't have it during this year's budget, and it was really kind of difficult to gauge what revenue we needed to raise.
I will say it is hard to, once you file late, especially 6 months late, it is hard to file timely the next audit. That said, we are scheduled to do preliminary field work at the end of July, so we're still on track with our schedule. It's just going to depend on whether the Board of Education is ready with those items.
And the list of items was sent out to them today to put
Yes,
together?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And I hope it does kind of correct itself a little bit.
Yes.
I want to talk about net OPEB liability for a quick second.
Okay.
It is on page 10 of your presentation, page
Yep.
59 of the
Yep.
council packet. It said we decreased in $2.8 million. So that
Yep.
was that result of a payment that the town, or payment of debt that the town has made, or just less revenue, or
No,
less expense?
so the net OPEB liability is made up of two things. It's made of the actuarial total liability, and it's made up of the assets that the town has accumulated to fund that liability. So I don't know why it decreased, whether it was good market performance because of the assets, or if it was an actuarial item that decreased the total liability. I would have to look into that.
And we do have an OPEB report that we can provide.
Thank you for that. And through the mayor, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So our revenue estimates were up 3.05 million. It's on page 58.
Your budget, yep.
Yep. And
Yep.
then our expenditures were 1.39 million.
Under budget.
Under budget. So
Right.
that would be a net gain for the town of 4.44 million. And then it goes on, if I'm reading this correctly,
Yeah.
it goes to, we used 4.5, in FY '24, they used 4.5 million in general fund money to offset the revenue, like kind of a give back in a sense, correct?
To balance the budget?
Yes.
Okay, yep, yep.
Fund balance.
Yes, fund balance,
Yep,
thank you.
Okay, yep.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I was, and then, in the expenditure category, is that kind of typical, and what practices do you recommend to kind of, maybe be more level or even in the expenditure?
For the
portion?
budget?
Yeah,
That's a very hard question to answer also, because it depends on how you budget, it depends on how you predict the future. Some towns change their budget to equal their expenditures. So it's just the way that you manage it.
okay.
Yeah. Could be 500 different ways out there.
That's it for now, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Counselor Borderline.
So overall, there's really nothing majorly wrong. I mean, what I'm reading, looking at it in comparison, there's really no outliers here.
We issued a clean audit opinion. There were no findings. We did have management comments, so there is room for improvement.
Right, like with anybody's budget. I mean, I look at my budget and I'm like, well, look at these restaurants, like where can I improve? We all, there's no perfect process. So when I'm reading here, there was really no major outliers and, other than some hiccups that, no one could really plan for when you have multiple levels out in one time in one branch of an office, which can happen, which can cause a backlog and then a delay because of whatever reason. If a certain staff is handling that, another person can't jump into a role as a finance person, so while seeking to replace, there could be delays during that time. But outside of that, there's been other outliers, no other major concerns here. Pretty much, like you said, issued a clean audit.
Yeah, our opinion was clean.
And that's from top to bottom on all departments.
Yes. Yep, the entire town.
Right. And I think with any good audit, which this is there's always should be some type of verbiage or wording as to ways to improve or change and enhance moving forward, which were noted. So that's what I take away. Other than that, it shows, as it was stated, the increases and the decreases that we've had, which are great. But outside of that, there's not much that we can see. Does this capture at all well, it wouldn't because that's the 20, I guess some people were asking, you know, Board of Ed is running short in 1 year. That's a different year than what this is capturing anyway. But even if it was, that wouldn't be something you guys really look at. You just look at the numbers and that they're moving and everything else, not really if there's an underestimate of funds needed.
I don't know what you mean by underestimate of funds.
So, like, in the budget process, it was stated that this last year's budget, the Board of Ed is short money to meet the needs. This type of audit doesn't capture those types of things.
We audit the expenditures and make sure that they're in the right bucket.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So if they're run short, it doesn't capture that in here.
If it's a budget to actual presentation, it would present that.
Present them.
Yep.
All right, and I think that was the only, and that's pretty much all I have, I think. The GBAS, can you speak a little bit more to that, that other line that you were speaking about, the GB 87?
GASB 87?
Yeah, just a little bit more on that.
With respect to what?
What exactly, what did you mean by like it kind of calculating it didn't really, I was trying to understand it.
So last year, the town was required to implement GASB 87, where GASB 87 requires municipalities to capitalize their operating leases. So the town had to do an inventory, the Board of Education had to do an inventory of these arrangements. There was one that met the criteria of being included in the standard, but it wasn't material enough to go through the calculation and track it every year. So management decided to not record it. But we have to track those items because they could get material in the future. If the town has another lease, we might have to record it. So we have to track these items.
So is there a money threshold is that
Yes.
it hits? And what is that threshold?
We can't tell you, to be honest.
So is this, I mean, is this like our lease for the Groton ambulance for?
I don't remember what it was for. I
Yeah,
don't remember.
I know we have one, that's the one that comes to mind. Okay, so, thank you.
Counselor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for being here tonight and for explaining this. This is a lot of information. I joked I needed the Cliff Notes, so thank you for providing the Cliff Notes
Yeah.
tonight and going over this all. I feel like, through the mayor, we talked about the management plan, we talked about the vendor master file concern and the financial close process, but I don't feel like we really touched much on general ledger maintenance or
Okay.
capital assets.
Yep.
Can you just touch on those, please?
Sure, so let me just get there.
I'm sorry for the.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
on page
fine. I just have
48
to-
for everyone,
It's at the
or
way
page 2 of
end.
the management form.
So general ledger maintenance, that was at the Board of Education. Hold on, I'm right there. So there were, I don't know, $700,000 of expenditures that were recorded in the incorrect period. So once those were identified, which the town controls caught, the Board of Education's controls did not catch because they were recorded in the wrong period. The Board of Education had to make an adjustment to record those expenditures in the correct year.
I'm sorry. When you say correct period, you mean correct year?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
so meaning something that was, a bill from 2022 was paid in 2023?
So, yes, so there was an expense that belonged in the 2023 fiscal year, and it was recorded in the 2024 fiscal year,
And how many of those did you say there were?
about 700,000.
Okay. And then the capital assets, I know you said was a town concern. Can you
Yes,
touch on
yeah.
that as well?
So, when there is construction in progress, you're building a building. There are certain items that need to get, so you keep things in construction in progress until that building goes into service. But there could be items in there that you wouldn't capitalize. So you have to look at that, you have to look at construction in progress on an annual basis and kind of segregate things you would capitalize and wouldn't capitalize. The things that you would capitalize stay in construction in progress, and the things that you wouldn't, you would just expense. So I think what happens a lot of times is towns could wait until that building is in service and then analyze to see what is expense and what is capitalized. So we're saying it needs to be looked at annually and not just when the structure goes into service or whatever project.
And is that something that we can easily move forward on?
So I think this typically happened with the new schools. So the new schools were placed in service September, they were open, kids were coming back. But even throughout that fiscal year that I was open, expenses were incurred. So the following fiscal year, when we were going through this process again, there might have been expenses that were for additional desks or things that they had spent, but they didn't meet the threshold to be capitalized, so they were expensed. So that happened between the middle school going into service 1 year and then the 2 elementary schools the second year, so it happened a couple of years. So it's just it's something that the purchasing agent and I will be looking at to change our procedures, to review all of the items that are on our CIP listing to make sure that this can be avoided in the future.
Thank you, Director. Those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I understand, like, I have heard from many people in the community that they're very upset that the audit was so late. And I hear that there were the obstacles and the reasons that were given. So we basically got in, we squeaked out and filed basically the last day we could with the state before we would have to go before a board. Is that correct?
Probably, yes, yep.
And what would happen if we had, like, missed that deadline, like?
I
you
think
have to go through at the state?
OPM would have wanted you to meet me and probably Dee, and maybe the town manager, to meet with them to just explain why we're still under a delay and what the plan was to complete it.
Okay, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry, who was that we would?
The Office of Policy and Management, State of Connecticut.
All right, and then you had mentioned that from the 23 budget to the 24 budget, there was $700,000 in the wrong period.
Right.
I have been led to believe that that was due to a payroll issue, that the payroll ended and one was processed, and that it ended up in the next year, and that's when it got paid, and.
Part of it was payroll.
So 250,000 of it was payroll, the remaining portion was non-payroll, which is invoiced expenditures.
Invoiced expense. Okay. So when it comes to some of these, are there things, I mean, I'm just curious as to how we got to the point where they were so over budget going in from 23 into 24, and we weren't aware of it. And then, from what I gather, they were allowed to use grant funding to cover that. But when was the grant funding applied to that account to put them out of the negative, basically?
I think at the last minute, right? When it was found out that that these expenditures were in the wrong year. I don't
So
remember
just
the
recently,
timing of
like-
that, March,
I believe it was
April?
March.
It could
Yeah.
have been around that time frame.
Yeah.
March, okay.
Yep.
And were they put there by mistake, or was it a
I don't know why.
Was there a
they-
reason?
They were there. either, I can't speculate why.
Okay, I just don't know, because
Yeah.
sometimes you would ask, and I know in
Yeah.
audit, they would ask sometimes
Yeah.
why, and you would be given a reason. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep.
So, let me ask you, so this audit here, there, I mean, it goes pretty in-depth on certain aspects, but then I've also read in the report that there are things that you cannot see with the audit you're doing, correct? Like, you don't take any responsibility that if things were, I don't have the page properly, but I did read it a couple weeks back, but you can't find if there's money missing, or there's things of that nature. There's things that you are limited to, so.
And, yeah, we
is that
don't
correct?
audit every transaction of the town. You would not want to pay us the money that it would take to audit every transaction of the town. The audit is not meant to uncover fraud.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Not saying that there is.
Nope,
Don't-
I'm
please
not
don't get me
saying either,
wrong.
but
Please don't.
that's a big misconception that, you know, when there's fraud, why didn't the auditors catch it? But
Right.
the audit is not designed to catch fraud, it's designed to make sure the financial statements are materially correct.
That they're materially
Yeah.
correct.
Right.
And that doesn't mean anything about, like, if there was potentially money being spent that didn't go in line with, like, our charter, or in relation to, like, let me ask you this. Did you see that there were any transfers done between accounts? Do you get to see all the transfers? And were there transfers during the 2000?
Budget transfers?
Yeah, transfers from one account to the other during
Yeah.
2023?
Yeah,
Were there numerous transfers?
I don't know that.
Is that in this report?
I don't know that you would see it more in an aggregated way and not a detailed way.
Are you referring to the journal entries?
Like transfers from one account, like if
So
something was
when-
under budget and over budget, that they would transfer money between accounts?
You would see that as part of this audit, if it happened after we had provided the auditors with the trial balances, which usually is around the end of September. If there's any subsequent journal entries that we have to post on our end, so if we received a journal entry from the Board of Ed to come to us to reclass an expense from general fund to a grant fund, that would be listed in the journal entries that are part of your packet.
Thank you. And, so you said there was like there's a staffing situation that happened over in the school section, and that's probably why some of these things happened. I will, please take my second turn. And so I think there was quite a time period where they did not have, as you said, a financial director or assistant.
Right.
So do you know who was running the department at that time?
I don't know. I mean, we ask for things and we're not getting them. I'm not there 24/7, so I don't know.
Okay.
I can't answer that adequately.
And you're saying it was due to these absences, that's why you couldn't get the items that you were seeking?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of responsibility on one person, right? And if that one person wins lotto and moves to Bora Bora, it's
I gotcha.
it's not good.
No,
Yeah,
I get you.
Yeah.
I definitely understand this.
Yeah.
I definitely do. And so, there are things listed here, and then these things, I do appreciate where you were saying the cross-training and having employees in that department. I think that's extremely
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
and working in accounting myself, I understand the importance of that and understand how it works.
Yep.
And not always that you want to learn somebody else's job, but
Yep.
it is valuable.
Right.
And then, so I appreciate, and then let me just ask you, the fraud risk assessment, this has been in here before as well, correct? 'Cause-
Yep. Yep.
All right, and that's something is it pretty like generic across the board that most everybody is being asked to do
Yeah,
this?
I mean, we try to tell each one of our clients to have something like this, and it could be something that you do internally, it could be something that you hire out for, but you should assess risk, fraud risk within all the departments of the town, and that includes cyber, because as we hear all the time, there's some kind of cyber attack somewhere.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And let me ask you a quick question while you're here regarding types of audits. Can you just quickly tell me what would be a financial operations review kind of audit? What would that entail? Does that
So-
dive deeper than the type of audit?
Yeah, I
audit
mean, that
you
would be
do?
more looking at the controls of an organization. Yep.
The controls and how
Yep.
they process and
Yep.
all their
Yep.
policies and,
And give recommendations on improvements of controls. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
All right, I appreciate everything. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any further questions regarding the budget? Counselor Pacino?
I have one question through the mayor. You mentioned that there was $700,000 money in the wrong account, and that there was grant money that rectified that.
Yep.
What was that grant money earmarked for? Do you know?
It's impact aid money, and it's pretty broad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, and obviously we would, when we knew that the funds would be applied towards that, obviously we had to look at that to make sure it was appropriate.
Understood.
Yep.
Understood. Thank you very much.
And I have one thing too. So the Board of Education has requested that we present the audit to them. I do not typically do that because I'm hired by, in this case, the town council. Obviously, I'm happy to go over the management letter with the business manager, but I don't like to do a presentation to a board other than the one that has hired me, or us.
Understood. It's understood.
So I don't know if there's some kind of advice or decision about that.
I think your typical practice that you would do, I think I mean, I can't give, I speak for the whole council, but me personally, I think you follow the, what you typically would do in that kind of situation. And if that is, discuss it with the business manager, I would say do such.
Okay. I feel like I'm gonna have a tough fight on my hands. I listened to the Board of Education meeting last night, and
I did as well.
I feel like we are getting blamed for the audit being late. And it's very frustrating because Susie Citizen in Groton, listening to the Board of Education meeting, is gonna say, who's this audit firm? And once they find out it's us, it's not good for our reputation.
Agree. I completely agree, and I think you should follow your practice that you normally do.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Point of information.
Your point of information.
Could one just present the outliers of the management letter of just what the Board of Ed, the 3 bullet points? I mean, obviously, they don't need to see they don't need to purview the whole budget. I mean, they are paying, you said 39% of this bill. So I do think they have a stake. I know it was stated that all the other departments, also are encompassed in this, but they're not paying. We pay on behalf. So would it be important just to discuss those items perhaps? I don't know if there's a new finance person hired yet or not, but it would be good for them to have those 3 items identified as outliers.
Well, as she said, she would talk to the business manager about those items.
Right.
And the Board of Ed was invited here this evening, and you saw how that played out, so.
Yeah, and there's other boards of the town. If I present it to every board of the town, it's just not appropriate. It's just, you're the board that hires me, so that's all I'm comfortable with.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for everything, and for giving us a very thorough, detailed accounting of the audit. I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn?
We need to approve this. We need to approve.
We have not approved? But now that there's a motion on the floor, we have to vote on it, and it's been seconded because it's not debatable. Adjournment by Borderline?
We were in the middle of a vote, so we can't.
I know, we are in the middle of a, but they had called an adjournment, and
I'll
it's not
retract.
debatable.
I'll retract. I thought it was just the president.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, which page is the motion on?
Page 33.
Page 33, sorry about this, folks. Okay, we have a motion for 2024-651 FYE 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Moved by Rusk, seconded by Gieske. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, looks like it's passing 9-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
by Rusk,
Second.
seconded by Bordelon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. We are adjourned at 8:30.
Might still be light outside.